few years ago, I set the goal for Israel of becoming one of the top 5 cybersecurity powers in the world.
An Israeli surveillance software tool capable of accessing microphones, cameras, and other data.
The NSO Group, in today's world, based on the evidence we have, they are the worst of the worst. This company, the CEO's name I think is Shalev Julio, is run in Israel. It was previously owned actually by an American venture capital firm. I believe they've been rebought out, but it doesn't really matter. Their entire business is preying on flaws in the critical infrastructure of all the software running on the most popular devices in the world. The number one target, right, is the iPhone. And this is because the iPhone, as secure as it is relative to a lot of other phones, is a monoculture, right? Like if you have an iPhone, you get these little software update notifications all the time that are like, hey, please update to the most recent version of iOS. And that's a fabulous thing. That's a wonderful thing for security, because the number one way that people's devices get screwed, if it's not just through user error, right? Like you entering your password somewhere you shouldn't. It's like a fake site that looks like Gmail, but it's not actually Gmail. You just gave the guy your password. Now he uses your password to log in. But to actually break into a device is that it's not patched, right? Patch means getting these security updates, these little code updates that fix holes that researchers found in the security of the device. Well, Apple's really good about rolling these out all the time for everybody in the world. The problem is basically all these different iPhones, right? You got an iPhone 6, you got an iPhone 8, you got an iPhone X, you got an iPhone, 3, whatever. These are all running a pretty narrow band of software versions. And so these guys go, if they want to target, for example, Android phones, like Google phones, like a Samsung Galaxy or something like that. There's like 1 billion different phones made by 1 billion different people. Half of them are completely out of date. But what it means is it's not one version of software they're running, it's like 10,000. And this is actually bad for security on the individual level. But it's good for security in a very unusual way, which is the guys who are developing the exploits. The guys like this NSO Group who are trying to find ways to break into phones. They now have to have like 50 different handsets running 50 different versions of software. They're all changing. They've got different hardware. They've got different chipsets. They've got different, like all kinds of just technical variables that can screw up the way they attack your phone. And then when they find one, it only works on like this Samsung Galaxy line. It doesn't work on like the Google Pixel line, or it doesn't work on like a Nokia line or something like that. Whereas they realize if they find a way to attack an iPhone, which is actually, this is difficult. This is really difficult stuff. Now it works against basically every iPhone. And who has iPhones? All the rich people, right? All the important people, all the lawmakers, all the guys who are in there. So they've made a business on basically attacking the iPhone and selling it to every 2-bit thug who runs a police department in the world. They sell this stuff to Saudi Arabia. They sell this to Mexico. And there's a group of researchers in Canada working at a university called the Citizen Lab. And these guys are really like the best in the world at tracking what NSO Group is doing. If you want to learn about this stuff, the real stuff, look up Citizen Lab and the NSO Group. And what they have found is all the people who are being targeted by the NSO Group, the classes of people, the countries that are using this. And, it's not like the local police department in Germany trying to bust up, a terrorism ring or something like that. It's the Mexican government spying on the head of the Mexican opposition, or trying to look at human rights defenders who are investigating like student disappearances, or it's people like the friends and associates of Jamal Khashoggi, who was murdered by the Saudi government, or it's people like dissidents in Bahrain. And these like petrostates, these bad actors nationally, will pay literally tens of millions of dollars each year just to have the ability to break into an iPhone for a certain number of times, because that's how these guys do it. They sell their business plan. They go, we'll let you break into any iPhone just by basically sending a text message to this phone. All you need to find is the phone number of a person who's running an iPhone, and we will exploit something. Like the easiest forms of exploit, or rather the easier types of exploits, are where they send you a text message, right? And it'll be like an iMessage or something like that. And it's got a link in it that'll be like, oh gosh, terrible news, you know, your buddy's father just died, and we're making funeral arrangements. Are you going to be there? It's the day after tomorrow. And when you click the link for the funeral arrangements, it opens your web browser. And the web browser on your phone is always the biggest, most complicated process in it, right? There's a zillion lines of code in this, as opposed to an instant messenger where there's fewer lines of code in it. And they'll find one thing in that where there's a flaw that lets them feed instructions, not just to the browser, but basically escape the little sandbox that the browser's supposed to play in. That's supposed to be safe, where it can't do anything too harmful. And it'll run out of this sandbox, and it'll ransack your phone's like hardwired operating system, the system image. It'll like give them privileges to do whatever they want on your phone, as if they are you, and then as if they have a higher level of privilege than you. They have system level privileges to change the phone's operation permanently, right? And this is the problem, is on the phone. You can replace the phone, right? And they'll lose access to that. But if they've already used that to gain the passwords that you use to access, you know, your iCloud or whatever, when they have control of the phone, they've already got your photo roll, right? They've already got your contact list. They already have everything that you've ever put in that phone. They already have all your notes. They already have all your files. They already have everything that's in your message history, right? They can pull that out immediately. And now, because they have, you know, all your contacts and things like that, they see that phone stop being active. They know you've changed your phone number. All they have to do is find the new phone number, and then they can try to go after you again. The benefit is, with that old style of attack, if you get that message and you don't click that link, you're somebody in a vulnerable class, right? You've had these kind of attacks against you before. It looks suspicious. You don't know who this person is. The number isn't right, something like that. And you save that link. You don't click the link. You don't do anything with that link, but you send it to a group like Citizen Lab. They can basically use that link to basically use like a dummy phone, like a sort of a Trojan horse, to go to the site that would attack your phone and catch it. And this is what the sort of process that all of their research is based on. There are other more advanced types of attacks that actually don't have these defenses against them, that are far more scary. But the bottom line is...
Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
What is Citizen Lab? Citizen Lab, you just said that?
The Citizen Lab is the name of this research group at the university in Canada, who basically studies state-sponsored and corporate malware attacks against civil society. It's run by a guy named Ron Deibert, I believe. You guys will have to fact check me on that one. I think he just published a book, actually, or is publishing a book about all of this. But it's really, they are the world leaders, in my opinion, in basically investigating these kind of attacks and exposing them. It's a true public service. Let's go back to that one thing. I asked you about warrants, and you talked about the fact that like people could plant evidence on things and then get motivation, or rather they could show probable cause, right, to the court to then investigate you, and then they can get everything. And you said, you know, you thought that a warrant meant they can go and search your house, and this is the kind of thing that we, you know, modern people are used to thinking of in the context of a warrant. Cops go to a specific place looking for specific things that are elements of a crime. Now, you know, you've heard all these things where like cops find a way to like stop somebody and they like are like, oh, I smelled pot or whatever, and they try to, you know, toss their car or whatever. Or plain sight doctrines where they open the door and the guy sits down and talks to them and they go, oh, you know, I see a bong or something. You know, that's paraphernalia, you're going to jail. But until I think it was 1967, warrants in the United States could only be used to gather two things. They were called the fruits and instrumentalities of a crime, which meant even if the cops knew you did it, even if cops knew you know, rode the subway or worked for this company or whatever, they couldn't get all the company's records. They couldn't, if they existed, get all the emails that you ever wrote. They couldn't get your friend to turn over like an exchange of letters that you had with this person. The fruits of the crime were the things that they gained from it, right? If they robbed the bank, the cops could get the sack of money. The instrumentalities were the tools that were used, right? Like if you used dynamite or a crowbar or a getaway car, they could seize all of those things. But the idea that the cops can get everything, the idea that the FBI can get all these records, you know, all of these things, your whole history, is very much a new thing. And nobody talks about that today. We just presume it's normal. We presume it's okay. But between 1967 and today, think about how many more records there are about your life and how things, like how you live, private things about you that have nothing to do with criminality and everything to do with the intimacy of who you are. And the fact that all of that now today is exposed, and not just to, let's say you love the U.S. government. Let's say you are like throwing cookouts for your local police department, but every other government in the world too. And we really need to ask ourselves, how much information do the authorities of the day need to do their job? Right? How much do we want them to have? How much is proper and appropriately and necessary? And how much is too much? And if we decide the cops shouldn't have this, if we decide the spies shouldn't have this, well, why in the hell should Facebook or Google or somebody trying to sell you Nikes, why should they have this?